Well, hey there, friends, and welcome back Inside the Den. I'm your host, Mike Stefannson, joined today by a very special guest. It is a thrill for me to welcome one of my former professors and an all-around incredible human being. It is Dr. Paul Mitchell. How about that for an intro, my friend?
Man, I appreciate you, as always, man. Thank you so much.
The voice. We could do this just voice only. If you're watching video, I'd say shut your eyes and just let Paul tell us some great stories, and we go from there. But, man, thank you so much for coming in. I know you've been in our shop before, but it's been a while.
It has been a minute, man. I appreciate you asking me to do this.
All right. Well, if the pre-taping stories are any indication, this should be fun. But I'm going to do my best, Paul, to keep things relatively short and sweet. A lot of things I would love to get to, your background, how you got to Reno, the influence you've had over the years on Wolfpack athletics and so many students, including myself. I would love to get into some of my experiences in your classes and some of the things I learned from you that I'm still applying.
Don't give it all away, man.
Exactly. Yeah. We got to save some little nuggets. But I mean, I go back to, one of the UNR fairs that you guys would hold up at the Joe Crowley Student Union when I was a senior in high school, and I walked in and looked at all the different tables and the different colleges, and back then I was pretty proficient in math and science, and my grandfather had been an engineer, and I thought that's what I wanted to go into. And then I met with those guys, and I thought, I don't know if this is what I want to go into. I don't know if I want to do this long term. And I realized, I had always loved to talk sports, and then sure enough, I get to meet you at the journalism table. I'll never forget the little pamphlet you gave me, and you told me to start doing my high school announcements, which I'm sorry to say I never got into doing that. I think it was just too far in, or maybe I wasn't brave enough to put myself out there. But I remember just being in your presence and thinking, man, I would love to be around this guy some more. And I can imagine so many students have had stories like that, and that's probably what gives you a lot of pride too.
My whole thing is about students. It's about the development of students and watching them have success. I had my time. It was a great time. Then I got into teaching, and it was really about helping students get to where it is that they wanted to ultimately go. Mm-hmm. And that was, to me, that's the biggest thrill doing this.
Well, we're going to get into that in much more depth, but I do want to go back to kind of the beginning. You're a Philly guy, and maybe just a little bit on your upbringing and growing up on the East Coast, and where you ended up, how you ended up in journalism.
Yeah, I grew up in Philadelphia, West Philly, born and raised, and my mom is from Alabama. My dad is from Philadelphia. He was born and raised in Philadelphia. I went to University of Pittsburgh undergrad. And then I went to University of Missouri Graduate School, and then I came to University of Nevada. My professional experience was newspaper. That's my background. I was in the newspaper business. And so I started on the East Coast, started in Philly at the Philadelphia Tribune, which is the oldest continually published African-American newspaper, and went from there to Asbury Park Press in Asbury Park, New Jersey, and then from there up to New York, to the National, which was the first all-sports daily newspaper. And up to that point, I was working in news. So it was really cool to go in and work with some folks in sports and folks who, if you look at ESPN, a lot of those folks, I worked with a lot of those folks. And so that was a great experience to be working in sports and be able to talk sports on a daily basis. Then to go from there to the University of Missouri. University of Missouri produces a daily newspaper. At the time, they produced a daily newspaper. And so I was working with guys and some guys from there who went on to ESPN and some larger places as well. So, and then to be able to come here and to help our students get to ESPN. I know some have gone on to ESPN, some have gone to obviously work locally, but work nationally as well as internationally. And so it's been a really, really cool ride.
I remember a lot of things you told us when I was in your classes. Not many other professors struck me like you did, obviously, but I remember you saying something like, I could be at ESPN if I wanted to right now, and I think you said, I don't want to live in Bristol, Connecticut, which I think speaks to how much you love it up here in Northern Nevada as well. Yeah. I do want to go back to the transition from news to sports, though, because in the pandemic, I had a little taste of covering news myself, and It just reminded me why I got into this, and it was to cover sports. I felt like I was doing important work, but I also kind of like it in the sandbox where sports resides a lot of times.
It's funny when I'm thinking back on when we first met, and I could tell that you definitely had the chops. You speak well. You present well, and that's what struck me. And I was always trying to be positive with you, trying to, hey, Mike, do this, and you did. And obviously that has worked out for you to go away from home, appreciate those experiences, and then to come back home and really appreciate and take over this community with what it is that you do.
Oh, well, it means a lot to hear, Paul, and that really is what happened with me. I wanted to start my career here in Reno. I wasn't afforded that opportunity, and I always equate it to the minor leagues. I had to go to my single A ball out in Billings, Montana, and I signed a 2-year contract there, and I'm thinking maybe I'll get to 2 years. I end up there for 3.5 years, grinding my teeth, and yeah, there was some moments where my humility was tested and my patience was tested, but sure enough, it gets me to a couple years in Spokane, and then I find my way back here. And yes, the appreciation once you leave a place and come back to it, I felt so renewed when I came here, and I was looking at the snow-capped mountains differently, and I was spending time with my family and feeling different about that, just knowing kind of where I had been. And so I definitely appreciate all the perspective you helped give me as I was diving into my journey. And I think back to even when you would quite literally bring newspapers in for us, and we would dissect the newspaper, and you would say, here's why you have all the ads in the Wednesday paper, or here's the top of the fold and why they're doing it this way. And so it's like they're all flowing through my head now, all the different things you taught us. I guess, why did you make a transition though from being a journalist to teaching young journalists? How did that all happen?
So yeah, I'm in New York, and obviously the National had run its course, and so I spent a quick minute New York Times, and then this thing came up with the University of Missouri, where I could go to school, get my master's, essentially for nothing. And that's what struck me was, hey, I can get this for nothing, and I need to take advantage of this, because I had gone to grad school at the University of Arizona through another program, and I knew I wanted to finish my master's degree. My mom has her PhD. My dad was ABD. My mom graduated from Penn, so my dad had done all the coursework at Penn. So they were both K-12 educators, and so education is really important in my family. So to have the opportunity to go and do that at the University of Missouri was really important. And then I transitioned. So I'm in grad school, and I got several calls from people, and when I got here, I said I'm going to go to University of Nevada, and I remember that week I got 10 job offers from newspapers around the country. I mean, large newspapers.
So that's a real teeter-totter decision.
It was a real big decision, and I remember one friend who was head of Yahoo had called me. He said, "Come work at Yahoo." And I was like, I made a commitment. I'm gonna go to University of Nevada, and that's how I ended up here. I made the commitment, and I kept my word.
We're talking across the country, yeah.
Yeah, I mean it was pretty much everybody, and I just decided that this was probably going to be the best opportunity. I figured, quite honestly, I'd be here 1-2 years, and then I'd go back to the East Coast. That was over 30 years ago.
Look at that.
So, I love the community. I love the people. I love the opportunity that was presented to me. And the opportunities that still get presented to me have kept me in this community. It's just a great place to be. What
was that initial gig back in the early 90s? Do you remember exactly what that job was you took?
No.
Just curious. Was it in the J school, or was it just within the university?
It was within the J school, because the person who asked me to come was a professor of mine at the University of Missouri.
Perfect. Okay.
That's how I got here.
There's the hook. Okay. Well, now we should note that you are the coordinator of recruitment and retention for the Reynolds School of Journalism. I guess, what does that entail? Kind of a lot of the stuff you probably did when I was going in school. Get you in there and keep you in there, right?
That's the thing. Getting folks into the school and keeping them in the school. And there's so many things that this institution offers for young aspiring journalists that, quite frankly, a lot of other places don't. And this allows folks to really gain the experience that is needed. You can stay here if you want, or you can go. And it's up to the student. I mean, ultimately, you have to figure out, well, what do you want? Well, when you're 18, 19, but you don't really know. And so You know, you go to school and you look around and see what's out there. And I think the important thing is to gain experience. You know, the experiences that you gain are so important for your future. And a lot of times when you're in school, you don't really realize the importance of making connections and talking with people and experiencing some things that, quite frankly, might be out of your wheelhouse, but they eventually help you. And that's the thing that I think that young people have to understand. So, you know, trying to help young people figure out some stuff as they go along. That's what excites me. That's what motivates me. So to recruit the kid, but also I'm not just recruiting the kid. I'm recruiting the family too.
Great point.
The family has to believe in what it is that we're doing, especially in this time of, I don't know, if there's jobs in journalism and that kind of thing. There's that kind of talk. So getting parents to understand, oh yeah, there's plenty of jobs in journalism. Things have changed a little bit, but there are plenty of jobs. And those jobs go to the people who are motivated the most to do whatever it is that they want to do.
I think it was Jeff Pearlman who was recently quoted saying that journalists nowadays need to be indispensable, which is kind of tough to hear, but it is, you know, it's the reality of it. It feels like the cream is only continuing to rise to the top when it comes to this profession.
No doubt. I mean, it's funny that you mentioned Jeff because he did a story on, he did a book on Bo Jackson. And Bo Jackson is from Bessemer, Alabama, which is where my mother's from.
Oh, wow.
And, I mean, what Jeff has done is he has made himself indispensable. He can do it all, you know, and getting students to understand that at some point, you're going to have to be able to do a lot of different things and a lot of different things well. That's what's going to keep you and sustain you in these fields and professions.
Well, and especially nowadays too, it's not about being first on air at 5 o'clock. It's about getting it on Twitter as soon as it happens, right? Or on Facebook. I mean, it's instantaneous nowadays, which is so much different than the journalism you were a part of, and making sure you printed by a certain time and waiting for the last games of the night to be done so you can get those scores out. You had said before we taped about watching the Running Rebels back east and just hoping they never went to overtime, which is so funny in this profession. I've experienced that a lot. Like, just no overtime. I have a deadline, please. This is a great game, but no overtime, please.
Yeah, overtime is the killer. But,
isn't it?
You know, when you're doing this now, I mean, back then you had one job. Now you have several. You have to be obviously be able to write well and to speak well, but to be able to do all of it. You know, you turn in your story, then you have to do something on social media. That's everybody. Print and broadcast. You know, you got to be able to do podcasts. You have to be able to do a lot of different things.
You're so right. I do want to bring up your folks if I could. I have your dad's obituary here. It's coming up on 10 years since we lost Paul Mitchell Sr., which, frankly, I had no idea what an incredible man he was. And reading this, and I mean, gosh, an Army veteran, Korean War, ran 5 marathons, and a special educator for 3 decades. So you mentioned him and your mother, Julia May?
No, my mom is Wilma Mitchell.
I'm so sorry.
That's all right. No,
I'm so sorry.
No, my dad remarried.
Got you. Okay, Wilma.
Yes.
But it goes without saying that they have a huge influence on what you're doing even today, and that's probably, I guess, why you gravitated toward education.
Oh, there's no question. I mean, my dad was a special ed teacher, and people hear my voice and they think, wow, but no, that guy was the voice of God.
Is that right?
Yeah, he had the serious voice. But my dad ran track at Cheney State University. He won a marathon at like 80 something. It was a triathlon. Excuse me. It was seriously. And then my mom played basketball at Cheney, and my mom is in the Basketball Hall of Fame at Cheney State University. So. And like I said, my mom got her doctorate from Penn. So education was really, really important for all of us. She won Teacher of the Year for the state of Pennsylvania. It was a pretty crazy time. But I knew that I had to finish my master's degree.
Or else you'd hear about it, right?
Quick story. So I finished my master's, and you know, I'm home. We're giving out Christmas gifts. And my sister said, hey, there's this gift here, but there's no name on it. And I said, give that to Mommy. So my sister hands it to my mom, and she opened it up, and she immediately started crying because my mom is she's hard as nails, man. And she immediately started crying, and it was my master's thesis that I had given her. Like, I'm done, and I said, I'm done. And a couple years later, I started my PhD here at the University of Nevada. And what was really cool about that was that Joe Crowley was such a gracious man. And Joe said, Paul, it would really be special for your mom, since she has her doctorate, to hood you. There's a hooding ceremony that goes on when you get your PhD. Mm-hmm. And so Joe allowed my mother to hood me. It was a big deal, man. It was a big deal for me and my family. Yeah.
What year was that? That was coming up on.
We were coming up
over
on
a decade
20.
ago, or
yeah, it's like that was about 15 years ago.
2008 or something.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, congratulations on achieving that, and what a special moment you got to have with Mom.
No doubt.
I think I have your folks to thank for the tutelage I received, right, and me and countless others. Man, there's so many different routes I can go, and we're kind of bouncing around. But I'm curious about your athletic background.
Yeah. So I played high school basketball, football, ran track, tried out at Pitt for basketball, and I was on my way, and I got shin splints. Really, really bad. Really bad. It was really painful. So I kept, I tried to play, and physically just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So I was on my way to making the team.
They were going to have you, huh?
Yeah.
What's the scouting report on Paul Mitchell?
Could jump at that point in time. Good leaper. Not a great handle. Could shoot it. But yeah, the shin splints it just destroyed me.
Sorry to hear that.
So that ended that. But I knew I wanted to do something that was still involved with athletics. I just didn't know what that was. And so when I interviewed at Missouri, got to meet all the coaches and everything, and that kept me connected to a lot of stuff. And I got to tell you this quick story.
I would love to hear it.
So one time at Missouri, to write for the Missourian different beats, I had students handing me resumes. Students were handing me resumes to write for football, basketball.
Wow, it's pretty cutthroat when you're in school.
It was serious business. It was serious business. I didn't understand it at the time. I understand it obviously now. So I meet the football coach, and we had done a story, and there was a misspelling. One of the students put a misspelling in the headline, and so the football coach said to me, "You don't know how to spell defense." I looked at him, and I said, "I guess, Coach, you have to see defense to be able to spell it."
Got him.
He looked at me, and after that, we were on good terms.
You guys were
after
cool,
that.
Yep.
But it was a funny moment. It was just a pretty funny moment.
That was a real touche moment from the coach right there.
Oh,
like, all
man.
right, I see you.
I see. Okay, it's like, okay, I understand.
Well, let's hit that athletic angle and let's bring it to your time here at Nevada. And I wanted to ask you about your earliest and some of your best memories. I tell you what, the earliest athletic memory you have, quite literally your first game, was a pretty special one.
That was an incredible memory, and that was the first football game that I went to was Nevada and Weber State, and I remember it like it was yesterday. It was cold out there, and the stadium was packed, and Nevada played its worst football the first half, and Weber State was literally throwing the football all over the field. They were throwing it and just running up and down the field on Nevada. What you have to understand too at that time, Nevada had some really good defensive backs. At that time, there's some really good defensive backs, guys who got drafted, and high, and they were just getting roasted.
Wow!
And also, the star receiver for Nevada, had been suspended. Chris Ault has suspended. I'm drawing a blank on his name right now, but he suspended him. And they get out there and they laid the biggest egg. And people are leaving left and right. And I was thinking about leaving. I was like, okay, I'm going to head out of here. And then something said, no, just stay. Just check it out. So they're down 20-something points by halftime. And I said, okay, this is the time to leave. Well, everybody's leaving.
At that point, everybody's gone.
Yeah.
You don't want to hit the traffic.
You don't want to hit the traffic. All right, let me stay. Come back. Weber State gets the ball. They drive down the field. They score. And I think that, by that time, there were about maybe 2,000 people left in the stands, and half of them left at that point. And I was like, I don't want to get caught in traffic again. And then Chris Vargas came, and it was on at that point, man. He started throwing that ball, and people were catching it. Nevada scores. They played good defense. It comes down literally to the last drive, and Chris throws to Chris Singleton for the winning score, and I couldn't believe what I had just witnessed. That was the greatest game that I've ever seen. So it was really cool to be a part of that, to be there and to experience that. And there's been so many other great memories, the Sweet 16s that Nevada has gone to, and to be a part of the coaching legacy and the players' legacy, and to watch all of that. Women's sports is huge for me. Like I said, my mom's in the Basketball Hall of Fame. I'm at every women's basketball game. I'm front row. I'm just all in on women's basketball, and so just to watch what has been going on. Softball, I'm really excited for softball these last couple of years. Man,
what a start this year.
Yeah, they're going to get it done.
I do want to talk about the current state of Wolfpack athletics and a lot of that, but I will kind of keep things in the past for now. You mentioned having an influence on the coaching legacy, and I often like to refer to you as the Wolfpack secret weapon, maybe not so secret weapon, but I think back to being a young teenager and watching Kirk Snyder and all those guys go to work, and even going back to Terrence Green. I remember when he had an afro. I just remember watching him play when I'd come to Lawler as a young kid. But Trent Johnson was the head coach and got Nevada to its first Sweet 16. You were a huge reason why Trent Johnson became the coach of the Wolfpack. What do you remember about being a part of that search committee? You were the chair of the search committee.
I was the chair of the search committee, and I have to give a shout out to Chris Ault, because Chris Ault was and is Nevada Athletics, and he got me into the fold, so to speak. It was a great experience. At that time, we were hoping to get a young coach, a young up and coming coach, and there were several that we looked at. And what was crazy was, I missed the last meeting. I missed the last meeting because I had to go to the University of Arizona. I was director of a journalism program at the University of Arizona.
Oh, wow.
So I missed the meeting. This is pre-cell phone. And so I get back into town. Coach is not happy because I missed the meeting. And I said, well, ex-coach, I thought was okay, And everyone on that committee said, no, we got to hear Trent. You got to hear Trent. Everyone on the committee said that. So they flew Trent back. And I'm sitting there and I'm listening to him. And it was obvious they were right. Said, he's the guy. And so we hired Trent, and the rest is history.
Wow.
Trent really did a number. Full disclosure, went to his hotel room that night. When we met in the lobby, I said, man, all you got to do, get this team to the tournament. Get them to the tournament. That's what you got to do. And sure enough, he did. And it was a great thing to watch and to see this go from Trent Johnson to Mark Files to David Carter to Muss, and to watch the success has been it's been really special.
All right, we're going to take a tiny break here on Inside the Den, but you know Paul Mitchell has many more stories to come in just a moment. All right, back here inside the den with Dr. Paul Mitchell. We were just talking about the hiring of Trent Johnson and getting to the NCAA tournament. Boy, they didn't just get there. They made moves. What do you remember about that Sweet 16 run in 04?
You know, to watch that team come together and to see them reach their potential. I remember Kevin Pinckney coming into my office on his recruit visit, and I'm looking at this kid, and he was so skinny. He was so thin. And I'm going, holy smoke. The best one was Nick Fikus. So Nick was interesting. Coach Johnson said, I want you to watch some of these guys. So I go in, and Nick Fikus walks in the gym, and I'm looking at him, and I'm looking at his feet, and I'm thinking, holy smoke, what's wrong with this kid's feet?
How does he make it up and down the court, right?
How does he run up and down the court with these feet? And it was got me to thinking, did we really hire the right guy? Did we really hire is this the
Who's
right
this kid
guy?
from Colorado, yeah.
Who is this coach that we hired? Yeah. And then he's bringing in this guy who he can't even run up and down the court. Well, Nick put on his shoes, and he starts running up and down the court. And it was obvious this dude was different. This was a different kind of kid. And so you get him, and then you get some of the other guys who come in. The person who started everybody coming into the old gym was Brian Green. Now, Brian Green was before Trent Johnson, okay? And I'm bringing this up because I want to talk about the legacy. And so I get a call. I'm in Arizona. I get a call. This guy's trying to break into the gym, and he told me to call you as a secretary. This was Angie Taylor's secretary. And she said, well, I'm going to give you a set of keys to allow him to get in the gym since you're vouching for this kid. And Brian Green, it was Brian Green. And all Brian wanted to do was shoot the basketball. So he comes in, he calls me. This is cell phones now. He calls me. Can you let me in the gym? Can you let me? And it's all hours. Can you let me in the gym? Okay, I'm going to let you in the gym. Well, it goes from that. It goes from Brian to Todd Okeson. Todd Okeson, I need to get in the gym. Can you get me in the gym? And, I let him in the gym. And there are other guys who coming in. I remember one time getting the call from, now I just drew a blank on his name, but he's flying in from Seattle. I'm coming. Can you let me in the gym? Well, T.O. was already in the gym. So these guys are shooting the basketball for hours and hours upon end. And, to watch that happen, it was such a cool thing. Now, fast forward, here you have, Kyle Shiloh, and you have some of the other folks that have been putting in the work that quite honestly nobody was seeing. Mm-hmm. And they're shooting, they're dribbling, they're driving, they're just things that, like I said, people don't see that are happening out on the court. And so I remember back on that time, and then to see the success. I was saying there was a woman who I met. She was from the Washington area, and she was connected to Gonzaga. And after Nevada won, she goes, "We're upset that we lost, but we respect your talent." And that said to me that this university was on the map in terms of its basketball prowess. It was such a beautiful moment, and to see these guys, and watching Trent go from really being frustrated to just moderately upset as he got older and the team started winning. It was just a really cool thing. And Mark Fox, David Carter, all the other coaches who have come in and who've had success at this institution, really was spawned from us going out and getting this young coach in Trent Johnson and just building on that legacy.
It was that epic 2004 win, second round over the Zags. I believe that's still the highest ranked win in Wolfpack history, and it was a dominant win. It was in Seattle, where there are just so many Zags. I mentioned I worked in Spokane for a couple years. I remember bringing that game up to one of the longtime TV photographers down there, and he said, man, I think back on that game, and I think of that little white point guard and all the shots he kept making. Like, what was up with that guy? And he was talking about Todd Okeson.
Yeah.
And little did we know, Paul's the one letting him in the gym to get those shots up.
Everybody looked at him and going, Opie.
Yeah,
you're looking at Opie, and it's like, yeah, Opie can play, though. Opie's going to let you have it.
He was a dog. Yeah.
He was a dog. And, I think that, I can't remember. I think it was Kurt who threw that alley-oop to I think it was Kurt who made the pass to Kevin. That was really special, man. That was really special to watch all of that.
So many epic moments with those
doubt.
teams. Before we started taping, you had told me a story about how Raman Sessions ended up over here too. What a find he was for Trent Johnson's team.
Yeah. Raman. So Raman was pretty much off the radar. He was off everybody's radar.
Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, right?
Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. A friend had called me who was working at a newspaper in Myrtle Beach, and said, "You got to see this guy. This guy, he's really good." Well, he didn't know that he was already out here on a recruit visit when he had called me, and so I said, "Wow, really?" He goes, "Oh man," and so I watched because Raman played. Raman came out here and he played. It was another guy who Nevada had recruited at the point guard position, who has a storied history, family, and it was quite obvious that Raman was at a whole different level. He's at a whole different level. Just the decision making, and this was pickup. Mm-hmm. You could see it was at a whole different level, and so to watch for Raman come in and I called my friend back and I said, he's committed here. He's committed to playing out here. And he didn't want to talk to anybody but you regarding his commitment. And that was really cool. But Raman is a special, special talent.
How funny how that all worked out, that he happened to be visiting when your buddy said, hey,
yes.
You got to take a look at this Raman Sessions kid. And you're like, oh, I actually am right now.
Exactly.
Who was the other point guard? Were you willing to name drop this person? You said they ended up playing for Nevada, or they were being recruited?
No, they ended up playing. It was Burleson.
Oh, okay, Lindell.
It was Lindell.
I guess they did cross paths. I got my ears a little mixed up.
Yes, they did.
And Lindell had some really good moments in Silver and Blue as well.
He did. And Lindell was a great player too. Like I said, this guy was just at a different level, and you could see it was visible. You could see it.
Sure enough, he plays a decade in the NBA, and kind of going off of that, a bunch of the names you mentioned. Now we look outside on campus, you see the Pink Hill student housing.
Yeah.
You see the Raman Sessions Performance Center. It's like, man, they didn't just do their thing inside Lawler. It's expanded to outside the building now, and their legacy is like forever imprinted on campus now. It's crazy.
The really cool thing about alums and folks here, and I have to give a shout out to Rick Raviglio and some other folks who are really critical to the success of athletics at the University of Nevada. They create such a space that people here know that they are loved. Our student athletes know, male, female, you've had success here, we're going to support you. And it's a beautiful thing to watch all of that, and to see it come full circle, with Trent Johnson coming back to be recognized, and even though he hates that kind of recognition, he needs to be recognized for what he did. The legacy. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, went to see Matt Oaks. Nevada played San Diego State, and Trent was honored there, and Kevin Pinckney came, and there were some other guys who came to the game, and then went from there to watch Kirk Snyder's boys play.
Kenai and Cade,
Kenai and
Queen
Cade.
High School.
Yes, and Trent was there, but I got a chance to talk to Matt Oaks. before the game, and not many people may not remember this, but Matt was Coach Johnson's first recruit.
First ever,
you know, first ever, and local
at a Reed High School.
At a Reed High School, a local kid, and to watch that game that night, you could see Trent's influence on Matt and his team and the way that they played, and then to see Kurt, and to be able to see Kurt watch his kids, that was really, really special, man.
Yeah, that was a hell of a night, if I say myself. That game at San Diego State, it's funny you mentioned, because they have the whole moment at the first media timeout. They say, hey, look who's here, it's Trent Johnson, and he was even hesitant to like stand up. He's like, yeah, I'm here, guys, I appreciate you, but like you said, he doesn't really want that attention, but man, he so deserves it.
He deserves it, and
then to see Kirk come back and watch his boys play, his some of his legal issues and some of the health issues that he's went through have been well documented, but to kind of see that come full circle, it sounds like their relationship is as good as it's ever been with him and his boys.
No doubt. And, I walked up to Kurt, and he turned and looked at me, and he started smiling, and he said, are you going to write a story on this? I said, I'm not writing a story, man. I'm just here to say hello. And we chuckled, and, it was good to see him and Haley. She played basketball here. His former wife played basketball here. So to watch folks who have stayed in the community, who have seen the beauty of this community, to get an education, to after you get your education, after your playing days, and you want to stay in the community, I think that speaks volumes about what the university and what the community is all about.
And our Zach Larson over here at NSN, actually, shameless plug, recently did a story with the Snyder boys, and we sat down with Haley, and I came away so impressed by obviously her, but the boys. I mean, she has raised these incredible young men who just very much know their place and have all kinds of different interests. And she even joked, like, sometimes I got to pull their leg to go out and go on a date or something. I got to put some money in their hands and just tell them, go have fun. But those are really impressive young men, the whole family.
To watch that young man play the guitar, the Star Spangled Banner.
Right, Kanai played the Star Spangled Banner.
Yeah. I was like, wow, this kid he's talented. It was really cool to see that. The first time I saw Cade is
Cade is the younger one. Yep.
So I saw Cade, and I'm sitting there and I'm watching his jump shot, and I immediately texted Coach Johnson. I said, man, does this remind you of anybody? And he looked at it, and he goes, his react. He called me. Called me. He goes, man, that's the same exact shot. And I was thinking the same exact thing. That was, it was like a time capsule.
That's crazy.
To watch.
Triggers you a little bit, probably.
No doubt. No doubt. So I got to say this. Kirk, one day he was on campus, and we're catching a bus, because the bus was running right down the center of campus.
Yeah.
And so we're catching a bus, and he said to me, he asked me, I think, one of the most important questions that I've ever been asked. And he said to me, Dr. Mitchell, when did you know that you became a man?
Wow.
And I looked at him, and I had never thought of that. I'd never thought of that. And I said, give me a couple of days
let me
to think
get back
about
to you
that.
on that one.
and I did. And I thought long and hard about it. And I came back and I gave him the answer. And I think for me, as a parent, you have to make a decision when you are going to become a parent. It's not so much when the child is born. It is, what am I going to pour into this little person, and how am I going to do that? That's when you become a man. For me, that was when I became a man. It's a conscious decision that you're going to do this. And so I really credit Kurt with some really deep thinking at that time when he was 18, 17, 19, whatever he was. I thought that was a really, really important question for him to ask and for me to think about.
Yeah, I found myself thinking about it now too, and I couldn't help but think of my now 3-year-old daughter, and I realized how much more aware she is of everything now. So it's maybe not quite when they're born. You can still set them down and they're not moving anywhere. But now that she follows me around and she's asking me actual questions, that's when you have to really make that conscious decision.
No doubt.
Wow, that's pretty incredible stuff.
Yeah.
I do want to bring it back to current events, but I do want to give a shout out to Matt Oakes. Reno High ends up winning that regional title, so there they go to state as the #1 seed.
Man, Matt.
How about that?
Matt has done an incredible job. He has done an incredible job. He's an incredible coach. He's more so an incredible person. Yeah. You know, his wife is a J school grad too.
All right, we love it. Out of the Reynolds School.
Yes.
Well, speaking of bringing people into the Reynolds School and bringing them to the university, you've talked about how you meet with recruits over the years, and I'm sure there's countless stories out of different players that have landed here. I remember after I came back to town and started covering the Wolfpack, everybody was excited to see Jordan Brown join the Wolfpack from over the hill in Roseville, first ever 5-star recruit. Eric Musselman was able to get him here. But in the lead up to all that, we were also curious about if he was going to come here. And I remember being on his Instagram account, and I'm thinking, I'm on this high school boy's Instagram account trying to figure out if he's in Reno right now. Like, what am I doing? But it's also kind of part of the job. And then you sent out a tweet, hey, I just met with a prospective student athlete and his family. He's an impressive young man, and I thought, here comes Paul creeping his way back into the journalism game and letting people know, yeah, he is here, and I met with him, which is so great. But I guess not just Jordan, but when you meet with these recruits, what do you tell them? What does that meeting consist of?
You know, it depends on who I'm meeting,
of course.
And so, talking about the coaching, the legacy, what kind of legacy do they want to leave? You know, I always challenge them with, what is it that you want? Are you comfortable in the community? The community is such a great place, and it loves its athletics here. They're so supportive of the university and all the athletes and the coaches and their staffs. And I think that's what makes it special. It's always interesting talking to a recruit, because sometimes what the recruit wants is different from what the parents want. Okay, sometimes they're right in line. You know, does the recruit come with their parents? Do they not? That says something as well. And so, trying to gauge what the student athlete is looking at and what the parents are looking for. You know, and you have some special moments. I'm thinking back on folks. I don't want to say who, but you know, there's some folks. You know, when they come here, they immediately connect. They immediately connect with the coaching staff, and they see the beauty of the place and the community, and they enter in. I remember one person said to me, you know, I don't want to make a rash decision, but it's going to be hard to top this place. And they eventually came. I'll say who it was.
I want to know who that one was.
That was JaVale McGee's mom. That was JaVale McGee's mom.
Pamela McGee,
yeah.
And she had a big influence on everything he did, obviously, in his basketball career.
Yes. But she felt it. She felt what this place was all about. And JaVale felt it as well, and that's why he came to University of Nevada.
Since you brought him up, I remember being a high schooler when he was playing here, and he left after 2 years, if I'm not mistaken. And I think a lot of folks here were kind of scratching their heads because he hadn't played super extensively. He was very raw, but obviously the length, the athleticism was there for the next level. What do you remember about when he left and maybe thinking, or was there any talks with him about coming back or going for it? Obviously, he developed in front of our eyes in the NBA, but he had some bumps he had to take.
Yeah, you know, there was one time we were playing in the old gym, and I saw him do something that I couldn't believe I actually saw him do it, which was there was a kid who had gotten the pass, and he's out on the wing, and he was at three-point range. Now, JaVale is under the basket, and the kid decides he's not going to drive. He's just going to pull up and shoot a jump shot. So he pulls up, and JaVale came. He covered such an incredible amount of ground. I couldn't believe that he blocked the shot. Another guy catches it. JaVale had run down the court for the dunk. But it was, I've never seen anybody.
You're like, that's a different level.
That's at a whole different level right there. He was shooting one hand 3-pointers off the court, by the seats.
Like he was ready for the NBA. Yeah,
he's just shooting it with one hand, just shooting it, and he was draining it, and I'm sitting there going, wow. So that level of athleticism was at a whole nother level, and to be able to see that with the Martin twins and T.O. and Marcellus Kemp. That's who was coming. He was the one who won. He got off the plane. Marcellus
out
Kemp
of Seattle. Okay, yeah.
Calls me. I'm coming to the gym. Off the plane and just start shooting for hours.
Kemp was, man, he was a hell of a player too.
Heck of a player. So when you see these kids and you see the athleticism that's at a whole different level, you have a greater appreciation for all the greatness that has come through this institution.
I don't think it was shocking to see JaVale go to the NBA. Obviously, make some money.
Develop.
No. He was Mr. Shaqtin' a fool for a little bit, which, you know what?
He was.
It worked out, though. He's got 3 rings, and look at him over the hill now in Sacramento.
And he's quite comfortable financially. So we look at it and we want, obviously, you want kids to stay. But sometimes the greater calling, and I think that it's important for fans in the community to understand, sometimes the greater calling is that they move forward.
100%.
But I don't think that they would, that doesn't mean that they forget about the place. That it's just that this has happened and we should be happy for them.
Similar breath would be when I was in school and we saw Luke Babbitt leave after a couple years. I mean, he was ready to go. He was a very polished player, and we saw Raman leave at the same time after his junior season. Those were the 2 guys, side note, when I was playing high school basketball against them, that's when I realized, okay, I am a very average basketball player. Once I played against Luke Babbitt in 7th grade, and he dunked on us when he was 6'5" as like a 13, 12-year-old. That's when I said, okay, I'm average. I know my place. I find the line, I hit a few threes here and there, and that's all good.
And I'm sure you were a great player. There are guys who are just, that's why they're in the league. That's why they're coveted to go to these institutions, and young ladies too. They're just at a different level, and all we can do is hopefully understand it and respect it.
Yep. Well, and you mentioned how they still always remember where they're from, and I remember it would have been the Twins' rookie year, first week of the season, I think. The Hornets are in L.A. playing the Lakers, and Cody Martin is at the free throw line, and I'm watching that game on my live stream, and I see JaVale. It's in front of the Lakers bench, and I see him stand up, and he's just chirping at Cody. And so I take a little screenshot because JaVale's the only one standing up on the Lakers bench. Cody's shooting free throws. It's so clear that he is just hounding him right now.
Yeah.
So I take a screenshot, and sure enough, Cody missed one of them. And I tweeted it out, and I said something like, JaVale giving his Wolfpack brother some heat at the free throw line tonight. And I saw McGee that night on Instagram said, great to see my Wolfpack brothers tonight.
Yeah.
And he actually had put on Instagram that screenshot
Wow.
He took my screenshot off of Twitter, and he put it on his Instagram account because it's him, heckling him. And then LeBron liked that post by JaVale McGee. So I can say that LeBron liked one of my pictures. This is basically what I was trying to get at.
Very cool.
But the next week, I actually ended up going to Sacramento back when I was with Colo 8, ABC across the street. I went to Sacramento to cover the Hornets in town to visit with Cody and Caleb because they were playing their rookie season together. And I think it was their 5th NBA game. And it was funny.
Okay.
They're like, man, I can't believe it's already our 5th game. Like, I don't even know what day it is because that was just how they were figuring things out in the NBA.
Yeah.
But I asked Cody, I said, man, it looked like JaVale was giving you some heat the other night in L.A. And he goes, yeah, he told me to give him one of those free throws, and I ended up doing it. And so I just thought that was so cool to kind of see them. They obviously didn't even cross paths this year, a decade apart from each other. But that Wolfpack silver and blue blood runs deep through them.
Let me share this. So I'm also now the faculty athletics representative for the university.
Okay.
So basically, what I'm a liaison between athletics and academics at the university. Okay. So I'm in Indianapolis because the NCAA is hosting an event for all the faculty athletics reps across the country. And so we're meet all these different people, and this one guy I just met him there. He said, "What are you doing tonight?" I said, "Well, I don't know. I'm just, probably just get some dinner." So I said, "Well, what are you doing?" He said, "Well, I'm going to the game." I said, "Well, what game is that?" He goes, "There's an NBA game here tonight." I said, "Oh, who's playing?" He said, "Indianapolis is playing Miami." And I look up. He goes, "You know somebody?" I said, "I believe that I do."
Yeah.
I believe that I do. So I texted Cody. I said, "You're not going to believe this, man. I'm here in town."
Well, it would have been Caleb, right?
It's Caleb, excuse me.
Yep.
Caleb. I said, "I'm here in town." And I didn't hear back from him immediately. Well, he was at shoot-around. Mm-hmm. He texted me back, "I got you. How many do you need?" And so I got ticket, and then I called Muss. "Coach, I'm in town." So I got 8 tickets. And so I invited these people who I had just met. Mm-hmm. And we all went to the game. I get to the game, and security standing there, obviously. And I said, "I need to go and thank that guy right there. He's on the Miami team. I need to thank him. He got me some tickets. Here's my cell phone with my ID. I'm giving this to you, but I need to go and talk to that guy. And I need to bring them with me." So he looks, he goes, "Okay." So walk over. He comes over, daps me up, and I was like, these are all these people, and everybody got to shake the hands, and that speaks volumes about the Martin guy and, his ability for Caleb to do that for us.
Yeah.
That was really a cool thing.
He said, "Paul's texting me. Oh, I got him." That's
him.
you and our family right
That's
there.
right.
Nevada family.
Yeah. So it was a cool thing. And, I'm really appreciative that he did that for us.
We're going to keep things going with Dr. Paul Mitchell because we are both plenty comfortable here inside the den. We're back with more right after this. Going to try to wrap things up with Dr. Paul Mitchell. I feel like we could talk for hours upon hours. Let's bring things back now to current events, Paul. And really, we're coming off. We are sitting here on Tuesday the 20th. Saturday was quite a special day in Wolfpack land, starting with an epic game inside Lawler Event Center. You had those front row seats as Nevada's ladies got this incredible win over Boise State. I was lucky to be on the call for that one, but what a win for Amanda Levin's team, and just what a performance.
That was huge. That team seems like it's really coming together right at a critical point of the year, gaining some momentum, going into the conference. I'm really excited for the team and what Amanda has done with that team. I was saying to you, when Tori shot that ball, I texted her mom. I said, your daughter just made this shot from West Philly. And she said back, "Yeah, I saw it fly past my window." I thought that was cute, but that was a huge win. And Izzy is just balling, man. She is really a great
true
player.
Freshman.
Yes.
Sammamish, Washington. What a get.
Yes.
Between her and Dymo Maxey, we're talking future years of sustained success.
No doubt. And I was saying to my son, "Hey, watch Dymo. Watch the way she's defending. Watch the way she's moving her feet. You want to defend like that." Mm-hmm. So it's just really exciting to watch the team come together and Coach Levins to have this level of success right now. She's getting them ready for the tournament. I think that they're going to make some noise.
Sitting 4th in the Mountain West, and this is coming off a really brutal loss to Utah State at home, and it seems like things clicked since then. They lost Claire Jacobs to injury, but they've overcome all those things, so it's pretty good to see.
Yeah. They're coming together, like I said, at the right time. Mm-hmm. And so, hopefully they'll have a good run in the tournament.
And, of course, Pac fans feeling the same way about the men. So the nightcap, what a game. Down south, it's always a little better when you beat the running Rebels. And, boy, down 9 with 5 minutes to play, somehow they pulled it off.
They are coming together also at the right time. It seems like Coach Alford is really dialed in on who can do what. To me, it's really special to me to watch Nick Davison. Mm-hmm. obviously I know his dad.
Yes.
And he's definitely a chip off the old block. That dunk that he had the other night was one of the most impressive plays that I have seen. He just went to the basket. It was just like, I'm taking over.
Against New Mexico, right?
Against New Mexico. I think that cemented in his own head what he could do.
Like, I'm a guy.
I'm a guy now, and and watch the other guys. Foster, quite honestly, has really impressed me the way that he has stepped up.
He's not going to be in the highlights every night, but they need him every night.
He's like Kyle Shiloh to me.
Yeah.
When Kyle was playing, he got in the Coach Johnson's doghouse. You don't want to be there, but he responded. He responded in a way that I think was really, really good for the team. Gary Hill Thomas was an real good offensive player who gave up a little bit of his offense and turned it up on defense. And that's the way Daniel is. He's really elevated his game. So to watch that and to watch the team come together, it's really special.
Funny side note about Kyle Shiloh. Couple falls ago, I'm playing City League basketball at Excel Christian, the gym inside Excel Christian, which is the former Sparks YMCA, and the opposing team is warming up, and I see a player walk in, and I go, that dude looks familiar. They have Kyle Shiloh on their team, and he's wearing one of his jerseys from when he played professionally. It says Shiloh on the back,
Wow.
And I'm like, dude, we're playing City of Sparks City League basketball, and I even audibly said when they're on defense, I'm like, you guys have Kyle Shiloh on your team? And he got a kick out of that, but
that's cool.
He's not back in this region right now, but he was for a while, and I think it just goes to show how much Reno meant to him too.
What's really cool is every year he comes back, he'll bring a group of kids. He won't say anything, but he brings kids up to see the campus. And so I run into him on campus like, dude, really? You couldn't text anybody, let anybody know that you're coming? And he's just really understated like that. And but it's really cool for him to come back and let some of his players see his alma mater is really cool.
I'm pretty sure some of the old posters when he was playing up at the very top of Lawler are still there. I'm pretty sure his picture is still there from we're talking 15 years ago, which, hey, I'm totally fine with them keeping Kyle Shiloh up and some of the other guys because they really made their mark here. Back to current days. What's your relationship like with Steve Alford? I mean, what a figure he is in college basketball, and for Nevada to get him 5 years ago was a pretty big get.
Obviously he's legendary. And his presence is kind of legendary too. He's a gracious guy. To watch him talk, he's not a yeller, he's not a screamer. He's a motivator, and for this institution to be able to get him, it's really, really an impressive thing. And so it's not just him. Noodles, the whole coaching staff. They know what they're doing, and it's obvious that Nevada is doing all this at the right time. When they put what's his name at the point guard position.
Rollison off the bench, sorry, Keenan.
Keenan,
yes, which he didn't come here as a point guard from FAU.
Keenan,
that's right.
He wasn't a point guard, and to watch him, and to watch his development. I think that speaks volumes about the coaching staff, what Coach Alford has done. I've talked to a couple scouts, and they told me, he has a chance. He has a chance. Yeah. So it's really exciting to watch the development of Rollison. I'm looking at Coach Alford's UCLA teams and thinking back on his teams in Iowa. It starts with the point guard, and his ability to identify players and not only players but how they can mesh with other players. I think that's really a talent.
Well, he's put obviously over 3 decades into coaching. I think, and he even admitted it, going through COVID was a little difficult for him. I think they have some, recruiting was a lot different back then, and he's probably used to developing high school guys, but now we're in this era where half your roster, if not more, is going to be transfers. I guess, what are your thoughts on just the whole landscape with NIL included now and the way rosters are being assembled? I think you're seeing a lot of coaches think this is a much different era than the one I got into, obviously.
Yeah, I think what it has done for the college game is it is kind of even the playing field in terms, before it was if you had in the tournament, if you had a 15 seed playing a 1, the 1
It's a wrap.
was going to win. Now, it would not surprise me if a 15 it takes on a 1 and wins the game. So, yeah, we're in a different landscape now. You're going to have guys who are older, who are more mature physically. That's going to even out some things. So it allows mid majors to compete with the higher majors, and so I think it really lends to a more exciting kind of a game.
What about the payment side of it all? Is there going to have to be some kind of different structure? Are there going to have to start being contracts handed out to these kids when it comes to just the money that's flowing through?
Well, I think with the NCAA, obviously they're going to have to figure all this out, and they're still trying to figure it out. This is going to be something that's, I think, for the foreseeable future, it's going to be something that the NCAA is going to have to figure out. It's also something that universities are going to have to figure out as well. Obviously, as an educator, what's important to me is to see kids go across the stage and get their degrees. To be a coach, you got to have a degree. You got to have a degree. And in some cases, you have to have a master's degree. So, making sure that these kids are educated, that they're not taken advantage of. And I understand you want money. I get it. What I would like to see personally is education of money. What can you make your money work for you?
Yeah,
if you're getting paid, it's great to have the latest pair of sneakers or coat or jacket or car or whatever. I understand all that. But, you're only an athlete X number of years, and then life sets in. And what are you going to do? So for me, getting a degree, even if you go play professionally, leave early, come back, finish your degree. Mm-hmm. Okay, I get it. Some people don't need because they have so much money. I get it. I get that. Okay, but the majority of them are going to need a degree. So education is something that is really important to me, and education of how to make your money work for you. If you're in that position, that's really important as well.
You said it, though. The next handful of years will be really interesting to see how that kind of gets reeled in, if you will, or how they end up adjusting the structure of NIL. And, of course, these athletes all deserve a chunk of what is being made in college athletics. And
sure.
So I think a lot of folks are happy to see it, but now it's like we don't want it to be the Wild West at the same time.
Right. And it's also, conference realignment and all of that and how all that plays into all of this. I think a lot of discussion is on the student athlete without the discussion of, well, these conferences are basically they are put behind the 8 ball behind TV and networks and all of that. Mm-hmm. So let's be fair in our assessment of all of this.
Well, that's the thing. You see like a UCLA go into the Big Ten. So now you tell me the UCLA softball team is going to have to go to Rutgers, or you know what I mean, or have to it's going to be an interesting. It's not.
You're going to have to travel.
You don't want to just think about the revenue, the big sports.
You're going to have to travel the entire country.
Yeah.
And when I go home to Philadelphia, it's a day.
It's exhausting.
It's tiring. So
try balancing a full school load and all
exactly.
that. Man. Momentum around the diamond sports as well. Year 2 under Jake McKinley, and then Marina DeMore steps in. Kind of year 2 under their regime with Linda Garza back home in Fresno now, but. Both of those teams starting out pretty well. The guys get the series win at UC Riverside, and I think the ladies are now 8-3 overall. Yes. We won't get to see them at home here for a little bit, but we're going to catch you out at Piccoli and Hickson Parks this year?
Of course. Yeah, I support all of our, athletes and athletics. So it's going to be exciting. Baseball, they got a pit guy. He's a former pit guy.
He was just the player of the week.
He was player of the week.
That's right.
And so, coach he's going to get it done, and he's going to do it the right way. He's going to have some really good players, and obviously because he was with the Milwaukee system, Milwaukee Brewers, he understands what it takes, and so he's going to get it done. Softball is just off to a great start. they're off to a fantastic start
watch.
and fun to watch. They're going to be good this year.
We'll have a handful of both teams' games on Nevada Sportsnet, just to let you know. I do want to ask you, going back to basketball, the new arena at GSR, that was probably one of the biggest stories of last year, biggest potential stories at least. I think a lot of folks are waiting to see shovels in the ground, but to see the proposed amount of money going into that property and Nevada, the men being able to have a new home, what do you think about just what could end up cooking over there at the GSR?
I think for the community, this is exciting. And to be able to see basketball at its highest level here on a larger stage, I think that's just great for the community. I think that it will get just current students really excited about what could potentially be happening. I could see where it could be, hey, let's get on a bus and go over there and check this game out.
Yeah.
And, people in the community, you're going to grab something to eat probably before you go and watch the game at this venue. It's just going to be a really cool experience.
Maybe they can bring the tournament here one of these days, or the Mountain West tournament even.
I think it's a little the arena is a little small.
A little too small.
But you could get other tournaments that could come in.
Yeah.
And, it could be an exciting time. And hopefully some of the, women will be able to play, or they might be able to draw a tournament here.
Yeah, do a special few games there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it sounds like there might potentially be a hockey team that works its way over here. That's all kind of speculation at this point, but there's a big aspirations with that property, and of course the Nevada men having a new home.
Yes.
We're excited to see that all come to fruition. Again, I appreciate you so much for being here. I don't want to continue to take so much of your time, but this has been such a great conversation. And we, of course, are sitting here in February, Black History Month. We're doing a line of different features around Black History Month. And you mentioned it right off the top, your time at the Philadelphia Tribune. We're going all the way back to, I think, 1884?
Yeah,
I can only imagine what it was like being an African-American journalist in the late 19th century,
right.
And what it might be like working there now. I guess, what were some of your experiences there?
It was a great learning place. What was crazy was the person who's the publisher. I grew up with a lot of his relatives. He has an extensive family, 21, 22 brothers and sisters.
Oh, wow.
So I know,
Wow.
I know a lot of those folks, went to school with a lot of those folks. And so, but that was basically the foundation for me of journalism and trying to understand it and learning how to become a writer and reporter and all of that. That was key to my development. Philadelphia, obviously, there's a lot of history in Philadelphia for African Americans. That was a free place, and sometimes it wasn't a free place. So it was just a very interesting time. I'm also looking at, I'm really into history, and so looking at what has happened at Nevada, and I don't think a lot of people know this, but Nevada is really important in terms of getting African Americans to play, just to be able to play football. The great Dick Traychuk, who by the way went to Pitt. He was in the Pitt.
Did not realize that. It's now the Dick Traychuk Wolfpack Hall of Fame as well,
yes,
which is obviously well deserved.
Yes, and being able to sit with Dick Traychuk and to talk with him about what it was like, here for Nevada players, and he gave me his experiences. I don't know if you know this, but the University of Mississippi said that they would like to play Nevada. And this was in the 1930s, I think it was, and 30s or 40s. Anyway, they said, okay, we'll play you. And they said, okay, but none of the black players can play. You can't have the black players play. And the black players, the white players gathered it as a team. They said, either we're all playing or we're not playing. Because they offered them, I think it was $5,000 at that point, which in time it would be equivalent to about $1 million, $2 million now. And the players on Nevada said, we're not playing unless everybody can play. So they didn't play. it happened again with Tulsa, University of Tulsa. They said, we're not playing unless everybody plays.
So this is Tulsa and Mississippi coming in and saying the black players can't play.
They can't play.
We'll play you, but only if. Wow.
Only the white players play. And they said, no, we're not playing. So a lot of people don't know that history about the University of Nevada. I'm going to share with you this one that Trey Chuck told me. So Marion Motley had to go over to San Francisco for something. And he gets in his car. He drives over there. He comes back. He gets to Verdi. He's stopped in Verdi by a police officer. Police officer gave him a ticket. It was $100. Okay. And which was the equivalent of about $1,000.
That's a lot of money for a little ticket.
Okay, right. So he was not going to be able to play in the game unless he came up with this money. It was a week later that he had to come up with this $100. The students paid his ticket. Nevada students paid his ticket.
Wow.
So that he was going to be able to play. And I'm looking at Trey Chuck as he's telling me the story, like, I can't believe that he's telling me this, you know. So the history of this institution on race and race relations, Nevada really kind of set the precedent for what a lot of other institutions have done. I mean, there's a great documentary, if anyone gets a chance, it was on CBS, about the Wyoming situation. There were players in Wyoming who they weren't allowed to play. And it had something to do with BYU. I don't want to give it all away, but it's a fascinating story. And it was a broadcast story. So if you can get a copy of that, it's
okay.
Really interesting.
That's another reason to be proud of our university, though.
No doubt.
Man.
No doubt. I have another one. So there was something that happened. This was during the Civil Rights era. And there was an effort to try and get black people to learn how to ski. And Nevada, this university, is connected to that as well.
Wow.
In this community. So there's a history here that a lot of people don't know about.
But a history of acceptance, though.
Definitely a
Which
history
is
of
awesome to hear.
acceptance.
Wow.
Yes.
So you talk about Marion Motley, who, of course, was such an enormous figure, a Hall of Famer. Then you fast forward multiple years, and we get Colin Kaepernick, which I was so lucky to be in school during those years. From what I remember, he was a very quiet and somewhat reserved guy. So when he ended up taking his stand as a part of the San Francisco 49ers, I kind of thought, man, this is the same Cap that was like kind of low-key in college. What was your relationship like with him, and what did you think when he really stood for something or kneeled for something?
Yeah, I mean, Cap, when I first met Cap. I'm walking across campus. It was a Friday. I'm getting ready to leave. And Barry Sachs comes running up. He goes, "Hey, Dr. Mitchell, I want you to meet this guy." And he's not on an official. He just came over here. It's an unofficial
Lightly
visit.
recruited guy, yeah.
Yeah. I was like, okay. So it's, hi, I'm Colin. I was like, I'm, Dr. Mitchell, pleasure to meet you. And I'm thinking, what position is he going to play? Because he was kind of thin.
He was so thin.
He was really skinny. I was probably the first black professor he met. I didn't understand the significance of any of that at the time. I didn't go up to watch football because that's when Chris Ault had just come back in the coaching, and there had been some challenges with the student athletes at that time. I don't know if you remember, but there were a series of arrests.
Yeah, it's kind of right when I was in high school coming into college.
Mm-hmm. And so I didn't really want to be around the team too much and coach, because I know he was trying to get what he wanted done, and so I was trying to be respectful of
distance,
that.
Yeah.
And Colin, I got to know him a little bit at that particular time. I remember the last day that I saw him, and he was walking on campus, and we spoke briefly, and I said, good luck on what will hopefully be a long NFL career, and I remember we walked away. I said to him, I wish I had gotten to know you a little bit better. And he said the same thing. He said, I wish I had gotten to know you a little bit better as well. And we walked away. And I think back on that a lot. We've had subsequent conversations. I would not be remiss to say that Colin would like to have a relationship with the university. I can safely say that.
Mm-hmm. When he was put in the Hall of Fame, I think he surprised everyone by actually showing up. I don't even think Coach Alt knew that he was going to be here, but I think
nobody knew.
Nobody knew. Yeah, he shocked.
There was one
guys.
person. I don't put that person on the spot, but he told me that
he's going to be here.
Yeah.
Did it surprise you that he showed up?
Yeah, it did. Pleasantly, that what Colin was trying to do, I think is significant. It's quite meaningful because as an African American male, I understand when you're dealing with law enforcement, it's different. Unfortunately, that doesn't mean that there aren't good cops.
Right.
That doesn't mean that every cop is bad. It's just that it's a different experience. And growing up in Philadelphia, I understand what Colin was saying. It definitely resonated with me. And so, those are difficult conversations that hopefully eventually we would have. But I can safely say that Colin definitely appreciates the institution and would like to have a relationship with the institution.
Well, considering how great he was as a player and he ended up leading the San Francisco 49ers to the Super Bowl, I was so proud to have gone to school with him in those moments. And then when he took his stand for racial injustice, I even became more proud of him and more proud to be associated with the university and associated at least with his time at Nevada. I never really knew him well. I had a couple moments with him, but yeah, I mean, for him to do what he did and sacrifice so much, it says so much about him, obviously.
He's a significant figure at this institution, in this community, but all across this country.
Now, quite literally in our nation. I mean, he's going to be in my daughter's history books, when she's in high school in 10, 12 years. So I can't, that to me is pretty incredible to fathom. Yeah. With that said, you, of course, love the University of Nevada. You are still a faculty member there, but do you feel like there could be a stronger bridge between the university and him? Do you feel like there's still some things to mend there, I guess?
Yeah, without getting into too much, like I said, we've had conversations, and I think that there are things that we could do to mend the fences. I think that it's something that hopefully the university will extend an olive branch to him. I think that he, like I said, he really wants to have a relationship with the institution.
All right, we'll have to see kind of what the future holds. But again, Colin Kaepernick, the ultimate representative of the Wolfpack and the University of Nevada, as is Dr. Paul Mitchell. A few more minutes with PM, and then we're going to wrap this thing up, I promise you, here inside the Den. All right, we are wrapping things up inside the Den with Dr. Paul Mitchell. Stories galore. And I want to wrap up the kind of Black History Month discussion and just the relevance with Nevada and some of the figures that have come out of Wolfpack athletics. We talked about Marion Motley. We talked about Colin Kaepernick. How about Nate Burleson hosting CBS this morning, getting to call the Super Bowl? He's interviewed President Obama and has done countless other things. People are waking up with Nate Burleson, the former great Nevada wide receiver, at the top of our profession, a former J School guy. You got to be so proud of him.
So he wasn't J School.
That's right. He was a communications guy, right?
Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
I stand corrected.
Yeah. So Nate, it's incredible what he's done in his career. It's great to see. So I have a couple quick stories about Nate.
Bring him on.
One was I get a call from Andre Patterson. Andre Patterson at that time was the defensive line coach for the Minnesota Vikings. Okay, and he says, "What can you tell me about Nate Burleson?" And I said, "Oh, great guy. He obviously an excellent athlete, fellowship of Christian athletes. That he was really serious about all of that." And so he's like, "Oh, thank you," and he wrote everything down. A couple of days later, Nate is in our building, in the journalism building, and I said, "I can't believe this. I was just talking about you the other day." I said, "Have you heard from any teams?" And he said, "Well, I've heard from this team and this team." I was like, "Oh, okay. What about Minnesota?" "Nope, I haven't heard from Minnesota." I'm like, okay. So I told him, "I heard from this guy."
I heard from Minnesota.
And he just asked about you. And so he gets drafted, obviously, by the Vikings. And so one year, my oldest son came to visit me. And I took him to see the Vikings versus the Raiders. But we had gone into Chinatown, we had gone to San Francisco, and I was taking him around. And we go to the stadium and going through this tunnel because someone I know helped me get on the field. So we go down, we're going down. My son turns and I said, "Hey, Nate." Nate Burleson turns around in his uniform and he goes, "Paul." So he comes running over and shakes my hand and my son is standing there like, "Is this really happening?"
Yeah, at this point
right
he's probably
now?
a teenager. Or?
No. He was young. He was about 12 or 13,
okay,
somewhere
so
in there.
preteen maybe, yeah.
Yes. So he's looking like, "I can't believe what's going on." So we go out on the field and we watch the Vikings warm up. We're standing on their sideline watching them warm up. After the game, Nate, Lindell, all of his family is there. We get autographs. We're talking with them. We head home. Randy Moss, my son got Randy Moss's autograph. Just an incredible day.
Wow.
Nate was so gracious. He's always been a gracious guy. And to watch that success of him and LaToya, his wife also went to school here. She ran track.
Yep.
It's just really, really a cool thing. And now to have his sons come and play at the University of Nevada is really a great thing. But to see this guy go from, and as we had talked earlier, ESPN held a show. Nate was a contestant as a former athlete to become a broadcaster. That's when it all started. And then to go from there to the NFL Network and have great success, and then to go to CBS This Morning is really something. I mean,
next level.
It was the whole next level, and how it fast tracked. And that speaks to his ability, his talent, and the way that the profession is going at this particular time.
I have a fun Nate story as well, and I was lucky to get to share it with him back at Nevada season opener last fall at USC. I was in 8th grade at O'Brien Middle School over in Stead, and a bunch of us who had gotten good grades for that quarter, they took us all to a Wolfpack football game. Happened to be the game, and I'm forgetting the opponent, but it happened to be the game where Nate set the record for most receptions in a game. He caught 19 balls, I believe it was.
Okay.
And so they had given us all these little Wolfpack hardcover, little tiny autograph books. And after the game, they let us hang out with the team and a bunch of linemen, and all these guys are signing for us, and we all want Nate. We want Nate. Where's Nate? Where's Nate? Nate was doing post-game media. Of course, he had just had this incredible game, 19 catches. We're all waiting for Nate. I'll never forget him walking out of those doors, out of the field house, and we all just went absolutely berserk. All these middle school kids just going crazy for him, and he had this huge smile on his face. Sure enough, he stood there and he signed every single one of our little autograph books, and I believe I still have it somewhere in a box. Nate, number 80. Nate B, number 80, I believe he was at Nevada.
Cool. Yes.
And I got to tell him that story, and like you said, he's so gracious. I mean, it wasn't like he was looking away as I'm telling him. He's looking me right in the eye, and he's like, I really apprate you sharing that with me. And then I happened to be driving in for a women's game the other day. I was doing the broadcast, and I'm pulling into the tunnel at Lawler, and I look and I see him. I'm like, is that Nate Burleson walking on campus? And I pull the window down, and I go, there he is. And he goes, hey, man, it's nice to see you. And then sure enough, he was here with Nehemiah, his son. It was his visit, and he ended up committing like the next day. So Nate the second and Nehemiah will both be on Jeff Choate's roster next year. And of course, we'll see Nate and Atoya, I'm sure, back in town representing the Wolfpack hard. So it's so cool to see Nate doing what he's doing. And as far as I'm concerned, he's continuing to ascend. I don't think he's stopping anytime soon.
No, he is just he's taking it to a whole nother level, man. Yeah.
Talk about taking things to another level. I want to talk about your family, and you mentioned your oldest son, Josiah, who is, I think, a year younger than I am, early 30s. Boy, he has put himself on the map in a variety of ways. He is a musician. He is an MC. Tell us a little bit about him and what he's got cooking up.
Yeah, he's a really talented young man. He was on the box top of the board game Twister as a kid.
Are you kidding me?
No, that's serious. And he was a finalist for a show on Nickelodeon. And, it was a situation where, I'm thinking, am I going to have to move to California, or is his mom going to have to move to California?
Am I going to have a child star in my hands?
Yeah, I mean, seriously, it was, it was like that. Unfortunately, the writer's strike happened, and because of that, all the plans for the show got canceled. But he graduated from Bradley University in Peoria, Illinois, and he was working for the city there, and he had started his musical career, and he made an album regarding retired wrestlers. He'd made a rap album, and the WWE heard about it, and they ended up hiring him. And so he was the MC for the WWE for a year or so. And because of COVID and an economic downturn, they decided to go in a different direction. But he landed on his feet. He's now the digital content producer at Disney.
Wow.
And in Orlando. And so, and he works with the AEW. And he made me a grandfather. And so, just really proud of the young man. He's done very, very well for himself and his family.
That's so cool. You're obviously a big reason why out there in Orlando he's hanging out. What's your granddaughter's name? And just tell us a little bit about her.
My granddaughter's name is Amira, and she's just the cutest little thing. And so she calls me Papa Paul, and we talk on with the video. We can sit there on our phones and talk to each
nowadays,
other. It's incredible. She recognizes me on the phone, and we talk. And this summer we got to my other children got to see her in person. We had a family reunion, which happened to be in Orlando. I don't know if I told you, but my mom's sister had 16 kids, and all 16 were very successful, and college grads have done really well. So at this reunion, it was about 200 or so folks at this reunion, and we just had a great time. But to be able to go and see my son, hang out with him, and hear family stories, it was a great time.
Wow,
great time.
And then a handful of years ago, some 13 or so years ago, you become a girl dad and have twins. I think they were in the oven when I was a student of yours, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Sydney and Spencer,
Sydney
correct?
and Spencer.
They were freshmen over at McQueen. So you got some high schoolers on your hands
I had some high schoolers on my hands, and they played basketball this year. He's 6'3".
Hey, all right.
And she's about 5'8", and so they did very well. They did very well in school. They do very well in school, so really proud of them as well.
for you to have, as we mentioned at the start of this discussion, thinking you might just spend a year or two in Reno, and now to have some kids who are quite literally growing up here and will always call Reno home. You probably would have never imagined this.
Never would have imagined it. And, growing up in Philadelphia, I appreciate growing up in a big city. I also appreciate the fact that I live in a community where I don't have to deal with some of the things that I would have to deal with in a big city.
Yeah.
So,
although it's getting bigger and bigger.
It's getting bigger and bigger. Reno is getting bigger and bigger, but I think that, the moniker, the biggest little city, it really feels like that. And I think that I think it's a great thing.
Yeah, that'll never go away.
No.
Okay, we need to wrap this thing up. Speaking of the biggest little city, you got any Reno favorites you want to shout out, or any establishments that you've been going to over the years that'll always be on the rotation for Paul Mitchell, if you will?
Oh man, Anna's. I love Anna's. They have to open back up, but they had a grease fire in there.
Is that down on Wells?
The one on McCarran.
Gotcha. Yep.
Yeah, it's on McCarran. Growing up in Philadelphia, I never had Mexican food, and now I love Mexican food. There are so many people, special people, and just the community. I think that the university president is a great example of what this whole community is about. Coach Schote, I have to give him a shout out as he's coming in, and I think he is changing the culture up there with the football program.
And I did forget to bring him up when we were talking current athletics, but a lot of folks are excited for the fall, of course.
As they should be. I think that it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Stephanie Remp, she has really come in and has done. She and her staff have come in and done a great job. The university is a special place, and I think the university is going to continue to grow. I just love this community. I think there's so many people in this community that I could give shout outs to. But I just want to say the community in its entirety, I think, is really something special.
Well, you're a huge part of that community now, and the impact you've had on so many people, including myself. A couple quick topics. You mentioned the Minnesota Vikings. You and I are both long-suffering Vikings fans. A little bit longer for you, if I'm being completely honest. But are we going to see a Super Bowl before it's all said and done?
No.
You've just come to terms with that?
I've come to terms. And, the thing is that when I was a kid growing up in Philadelphia, the Eagles were so bad. They just didn't resonate with me. The Vikings, because they played out in the cold and they were physical and they were tough, that resonated with me. I really think that them going indoors, quite honestly, was the worst thing that happened to the franchise.
Really? Because that used to be their thing, right?
That was their thing.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at Green Bay, they've embraced it. And I think that it has been something that has been successful for them. The Chicago Bears.
That's a great point.
They did the same thing. Detroit went indoors, and this was their first winning season. No disrespect to Detroit. This was their first winning season in God only knows how long ago. So, I think that for Minnesota, going indoors was at their detriment. It took away their mystique. So I really don't think that I will see it happen in my lifetime. Maybe in yours, I think, but in my lifetime, no, I don't think it's going to happen.
Oh, well, I hope you're wrong, but
I hope so too.
U.S. Bank is a beautiful stadium.
It is a beautiful
but you said
stadium.
it's indoors.
Yeah.
Going back to my fanhood, it's Randy Moss. He was like the first player I really remember watching, and remember he was on the cover of the original NFL 2K on Sega Dreamcast, and I thought, I got to have that game because Randy Moss is on the cover, and I've just stuck with them for better or for worse since then. Kind of same with my Mariners fanhood, which is a whole nother discussion, but that was with Ken Griffey Jr. I latched onto the kid, and then I just never let go of the Mariners. Lakers have got a couple rings in there for me, so that's good. Speaking of the NBA, we'll wrap it up here. Who's the NBA GOAT?
Will Chamberlain.
Okay. I figured you'd give me someone outside of MJ or LeBron. So
yeah. I mean, MJ and LeBron, don't get me wrong, great players. They didn't have rules changed because of their greatness.
That's such a great point.
They didn't have rules changed. They didn't average 50 points a game. They didn't average 50 points a game. the lane was widened because of Wilt. Every record, any NBA record, always references Wilt Chamberlain. So, and I know that for fans, a lot of fans, they never saw him play. I grew up in Philly. I saw him play. He ran a 4.240. He pulled out. He ran a 4.240. Billy Cunningham said they were in L.A. They were on an elevator, and there was a group of guys trying to get this piano off of the elevator, and they had no success. Wilt pulled it off by himself. He pulled it off by himself. So not just a phenomenal basketball player. He was a volleyball player. He ran track. He is one of the greatest athletes ever, and his exploits as a basketball player. One year he said, "You know what? I'm going to lead the league in assists." Who does that?
Yeah.
And he did. He did it. Who does that? So to me, Wilt Chamberlain is the greatest basketball player that I have ever seen.
Scored 100 points in a game too. That's pretty. Everybody wants to see the video, but that's all right. We got a photo.
There's no video.
There doesn't need to be.
And it wasn't played in Philly. He was just a phenomenal talent. Phenomenal talent.
Can I give you the floor to name drop anybody that you'd want to name drop, or anybody you've crossed paths with over the years? You and Stephen A. Smith go back, but are there some athletes that you've interviewed, or maybe like milestone moments in your career that you still kind of look back on?
One was pre-career. I was with my buddy Cliff Brown and my family, and we went to see Mary Poppins on 52nd Street in Philly, West Philadelphia. We come out of the theater, and there's Muhammad Ali holding court. And I walked up to him, I said, "Can I shake your hand?" He said, "Shake the hand of the man." And I shake his hand, and he says to my mom, "Can I kiss you, pretty lady?"
Stop it.
And so he kissed her on the cheek. But Muhammad Ali just standing out in West Philly, having a conversation with guys on the street. That to me, he was the greatest. He's the greatest to me. And to witness that, to be able to witness that was something I'll never forget. I've met Michael Jordan here in
probably in Tahoe, yeah.
In Tahoe. Have had conversations with Charles Barkley many years ago.
He's a great man, by the way.
Great guy. Yeah. Great guy. But Muhammad Ali was the biggest one for me.
Yeah, I feel like you could just float away and everything could be good after that.
Yes, indeed.
Float like a butterfly, if you will.
Yes. Yes.
Well, Paul, I cannot thank you enough for coming and sitting down with us and going a little bit longer than maybe we imagined, but just incredible stories, and I just want to just continue to give you your flowers at the end of this and just tell you how much you've influenced me. Some of the things I take from you is the power of observation was something you really harped on so much with us. Yes. And I think it was something like thinking in a more complex way, or you try to teach thinking in a complicated way. And I remember you walking outside of our classroom and you put your hands out and you said, "I'm 6'4" or whatever. Yeah. And you couldn't reach the braille, or the braille was up at your level or something like that. And you said, why would they have it up so high for the blind folks? And it's something that we would never, walking by it every day, we would never think about. Or Reynolds, I think, was spelt incorrectly somewhere inside the J school. Yes. We would have never caught that, but you caught it and you showed us it. And I find myself catching misspellings now, and sometimes they're my own, unfortunately. But you see them in things where you're like, didn't that get checked? And so I thank you for helping teach me the powers of observation and to think in a little more complex way.
I really appreciate you, Mike, and to watch you, like I said, what you've done in this community and what you've done for this network, I think is really, really powerful, man. Continue success for you as well.
I don't take that lightly. I really appreciate you so much, Paul. And it sounds like you still got some friends over at the Worldwide Leaders, so I'm going to have to slide you my resume one of these days before you call it quits. He is Dr. Paul Mitchell, the man inside the Reynolds School of Journalism. Thanks so much for joining us inside the Den.
Thank you again, man. Appreciate you. All right. Take care.